It's another Friday. That means it's a new episode of The Mandalorian. We are at the next to last episode of the season, so let's talk about it. Hi, my name is Sean, and I love to talk about movies and TV way too much. With that in mind, go ahead and join me down below in the comments section. Let me know, what did you think of this week's episode, and what do you think is going to happen in next week's episode? And feel free to spoil away in the comment section. You do not need to put spoiler warnings or anything like that. I was actually supposed to be off this week, and the only video I was going to shoot and make was going to be this video right here that we're making, because I'm doing these Mandalorian videos each week. But then Disney decided to do their shareholders meeting stream yesterday, where they dropped a ton of Star Wars and Marvel and Pixar and everything else news. So actually we'll have a bunch of content. I actually put out 5 videos yesterday. Tomorrow, I'm going to do a video covering a bunch of the Star Wars announcements, and then I believe I'll have another video on Marvel content on Sunday, just so you know what's coming, or if you're wondering if I'm going to share my thoughts on some of the Star Wars announcements, that is coming tomorrow. And let's get started with my general impressions. About the episode. And I'd say another solid episode for the season, though not one that pops quite as much as like the last 4 that we've gotten that had just such strong fan service type moments that it's just like, wow, that was awesome to see this person finally on the big screen, or I guess this would be the small screen, but in live action. This isn't really like that, but it's a solid episode, and I think they need to start doing more episodes like this. If you look at the first 5 episodes of this season, it was a lot of the Mandalorian goes somewhere and does someone a favor. So it kind of, maybe you introduce a character that's important, you follow up with a character that's important, we learn something that's important, but the actual conflict of the episode is, hey, Mando, I need you to do me a favor so I can give you some information. Hey, Mando, I need you to drive this person across town in order for this. It's always kind of that favor. 5 episodes in a row was a favor. It just makes the episodes just feel like side quests. It makes them feel like not particularly important. And when you do 5 of them in a row, that's a bit of a lazy way to structure your episodes, because it's the same exact basic setup for your episode. Hey, Mando, can you do me a favor? This one and last week did something different with their stories, where they told kind of something that ties into this larger narrative, to where we're trying to get information, so therefore we have to break into this thing, so we have to get this person to help us along the way. It's still a simple story. This show's always going to have simple kind of structures to it, but the objective ties into what's going on with the story as a whole, as opposed to, hey, can you do me a favor, so we can get some information that ties into the story as a whole. So I enjoyed that it moved away from the favor model, and it's in a lot of ways kind of more character-based than almost any other episode of the series thus far, because you get actual development for Mando and growth and change. He's had very slow change as Grogu has been in his life. This episode, you see the conflict of his code versus his love for Grogu, and whatever Grogu means to him. Those come into conflict, and he has to choose between them. And that's interesting, because we're seeing him have to become something new to be what Grogu needs. That's character development. That's interesting. And then even with the Bill Burr character, they use him to kind of flesh out our understanding of the Imperial type stuff. So a solid episode. I think I need to watch it a couple more times to really figure out where I'm at on it. And what I mean by that is that when you watch an episode and you see Boba Fett armor, and you see Bo-Katan show up, and you see Ahsoka Tano show up, that's immediately exciting in a way that's flashy, because there's something familiar that we've wanted to see in live action, or we've just want to see this character from this previous show to continue. Where are they at? And so there's an immediate, obvious excitement to it. And so when you tell a story that doesn't rely on the fan service, that doesn't rely on the trickery, you don't have that immediate burst of excitement that goes along with it. And so then you kind of rely on the story. And this one, I think, on just pure story, without the trickery, has a little bit more to it in certain ways than some of these more fan servicey episodes. But my immediate reaction to the fan servicey episodes was like, oh, that was really cool to get to see them. So with all of that said, let's get started with our walkthrough for the episode. And even before we talk about this week, last week it ended with Mando going to Cara Dune saying, hey, I need your help breaking someone out of prison. I need him for a mission to help save Grogu. And so it teased pretty heavily where this episode was going. In my predictions for this week's episode, I said it's going to be a jailbreak episode. They're going to go get Bill Burr. Not because I'm a fortune teller with inside information or anything, but because they told us that's what they were going to do. So this episode picks up immediately with that. It doesn't waste any time. Bill Burr, he is out there working a little bit, and Cara Dune walks up to say, hey, come with me, walks off. And standing outside of Slave One is Boba Fett. And so he's, oh, you remind me of someone else. I got nervous there for a sec. And then Mando walks out. Nice little moment there with the way it plays out. And then they recruit him to go on this mission to go and get the information that they need to rescue Grogu. And one thing immediately about Bill Burr is that Bill Burr does Bill Burr. Star Wars characters, a large percentage of them have like a certain Star Wars-y way to their character, just with the way that George Lucas kind of wrote dialogue for a long time, the way that he had them do the acting. It has a certain way about it, and certain characters, things break from that, and it's a nice change of pace. So, like Finn, for example, in the sequels, feels very different from a lot of other Star Wars characters because he just has a more organic way to the vibe of him. The Taika Waititi episode starts off with these stormtroopers punching Grogu in the head. Felt different from kind of what you normally expect from Star Wars. In Bill Burr, likewise, Bill Burr does Bill Burr. You know, he's not a great thespian. He's a great entertainer and performer. And so he kind of brings his personality into the world of Star Wars. And so just even the way he delivers dialogue, the way he kind of plays off other people, it just feels a little bit different from a lot of what Star Wars feels like a lot of times. So just a nice change of pace. And especially when you have Mando, who is intentionally very reserved, wears the helmet almost all the time. That Bill Burr spice is a nice change of pace in addition to the show. So they go on their mission where Bill Burr, former Imperial, so he can get them in to get the information to find out where Moff is at, so we can go hunt him down for our big showdown in the finale. So they take them to this place, and along the way, they pretty early start to establish some of these themes of what will it cost Mando to rescue Grogu? That this matters so much to him. Not just even him, Cara Dune as well, that she cares about Mando, cares about little baby Yoda. So she's pulling strings to be able to get Criminal Guy to potentially help them on this mission. So they arrive there to sneak in. They do face scans and stuff. Sort of thing that feels a little bit forced in the sense of, you know, the way that you would actually do security. They cheat the plot point to force the scenario to where it has to be Mando going with them because the others have too many ties to New Republic and they're on the registries and stuff like that. So it has to be Mando going in because they're not going to send ex-con guy in there that they don't trust because they obviously just got him out of prison because he betrayed Mando in the past and he's a former Imperial. So they have to send Mando in. Bit of a contrived situation for him to go in and create a scenario where this episode is going of testing what Mando can do. But to get in, he can't obviously go in there dressed as a Mandalorian. So they take out a couple of these transport troopers, dress up, and so Mando's covered, helmet on, but it's not his helmet. So immediately you start to have like Mando is having to compromise on the definitive thing that we know about him is that he is hardcore about his creed. He meets other Mandalorians and he's about to shoot them because they take their helmets off, wants to go to war with them, even though some of them are actually Mandalorian royalties. Like, you guys aren't the real deal. Suddenly he's changing his attitude. And that's where this episode starts to have some very interesting meat to it. That our lead character, 2 seasons in, is having to change and grow because something new was added into his life that he values even more, or that he fuses like the ultimate continuation of what he believed in before requires this compromise. So changes outfits. So they're going in, and you even have this dialogue in the midst of all of this to where you have Bill Burr as kind of this very jaded former Imperial talking about, almost like in such a callous fashion, about Mandalore being defeated, Alderaan being blown up. Like, hey, if you're born here, you believe this. If you're born on Alderaan, you believe this. Both of them are gone now. And so you just see this jaded worldview of him versus Mando, who all he has is this belief system. That's what's guided his entire life. And he's in this moment where he goes, okay, I believe in something, or I value something even more than this belief system. So the episode's called The Believer. And so that's very at the center of the episode is, what does he really believe in? What does Mando truly believe in? And those character moments, like I said, are what distinguish this episode. And where you can see that this could be potentially a deeper path for season 3. Season 2, the thing that made so many of these episodes just put the big grin on our face was, look at that! It's... person showed up. Look at that! It's Boba Fett's armor. We're back on! Fan service. Yeah, relying on the past in very cool ways, earning it, paying it off, but a lot of ties to the past. And you can see right here to where you could have a meatier 3rd season that relies on character and plots. So anyway, Mando starting to think in his brain, belief system being challenged. And then pirates show up. It's Mandalorian, we got to have some battles in here. So pirates show up to steal the stuff that they're transporting. And we get a nice little good old-fashioned stagecoach style, robbing the locomotive, Western style situation, pirates jumping on while Mando's trying to take them out. And the stuff they're transporting is highly volatile, so these guys are trying to blow it up, throwing grenades in there, whatever they're trying to do. So Mando has to battle them off, and he's doing a really good job, runs out of ammo, has to punch some guys. He's doing a pretty fantastic job, but there's a lot of them, so eventually he's in a lot of trouble. And like maybe for the first moment in Star Wars live action history, you're actually like cheering as TIE fighters show up to save the day, and the Imperials get to be the heroes by taking out and blowing up these pirates. Though at the same time, in light of the situation of what the Imperials are doing with all of this, you start to realize, maybe the pirates aren't such bad guys after all. It's just a matter of perspective at this moment. So we just watched some guys trying to stop Imperials from having bad stuff getting blown away, and we were cheering on the death of the people trying to stop Imperials. So, there's a couple of things, if you stop to think about this stagecoach sequence, that Mando might not have been on the best side on this one with taking all of these guys out. But, once again, the only thing that matters to him is rescuing his little green friend. So, they avoid all of these pirates, make it into the base, and they get off, and all these Imperials are kind of cheering for him. It's actually playing like triumphant music. And it's an interesting sequence because you're suddenly seeing the world through the eyes of the Imperials of like, yeah, we did it. We were at a successful mission, and that they care about each other and they have moments of victory, and you just see it differently in that moment. You sympathize with them in a way that's not the way we normally feel about Imperials. And so then they realize that the terminal is in the officer's lounge. Bill Burr can't go in there, won't go in there because the guy that was his commanding officer on a previous mission is sitting right there. Like, he's right there. Bill Burr, you have to take your helmet off. You have to have your face scanned. He doesn't think this is a good idea for him to do this. So then he's like, we gotta come up with a different plan. Mando has his ultimate moment of having to decide what does he value most. Decides he will go in, have his face scanned to gain access to this information. So he goes in, tries to not take his helmet off, and then he takes the helmet off. And so he's in a room full of people. They can see his face getting scanned to get this information. And at the heart of storytelling, at the heart of it, like what makes you actually care about characters is their growth and their change, that there's conflict put in front of them and the choices that they make to overcome those conflicts. And this is ultimately, in the course of the show up to this point in time, we've only had a handful of these moments where Mando's had to make a big choice that compromises him based everything that existed about him before this moment. So episode 1, you have the first one. He's doing this mission and he sees this little child and he will not let droid thing try and kill it. So then he decides, I'm going to take that guy out. And then episode 3, he turns it over and he decides, no, I'm going to go against everything I believe. I'm going to go back and get it. And I don't know that we've had a terribly large moment where he had to make a choice that dramatically affects everything else in his life based off what he believes till this moment. And to us, it's nothing. Show your face, take your helmet off. But to him, it's everything. Everything prior to Grogu entering his life. And now, Grogu, Baby Yoda, little green friend, is what matters. Takes the helmet off, gets scanned. The officer, Bill Burr's former lead officer, sees him and wants to talk with him. So he walks over, and Mando doesn't have good answers to any of his questions, and so he's saying a bunch of dumb stuff. So Bill Burr walks up, and so he sees, wow, Mando, they actually took his helmet off. Like, this guy's really doing this. He realized, I'm going to step in. So he steps in. Officer guy's like, oh, you guys got your transport stuff. Let's have a drink. So they sit down to have a drink. And you have this sit down to where you have Bill Burr, who is incredibly jaded based off what happened with him in the Imperial War, the deaths and everything. And here is the officer that was over him, responsible for all these people dying. And you kind of have the back and forth of Bill Burr, who's so angry at this guy about what happened, that the reason he's so jaded and he can casually be like, yeah, Alderaan, it's gone. Oh, Mandalorian's gone. You flippantly joke about it. The reason that he turned into an outlaw was this guy across the table. And he can't, you start to realize the reason that he didn't want to go in there wasn't just that he might be recognized. It's that he knew, if I interact with this guy, I cannot stay calm. And so he provokes Officer Guy. Officer Guy keeps saying more and more just stuff where he clearly doesn't care about people or anything. It's all about glory of the Empire, but in a totally empty way. And so eventually, Bill Burr, after this guy just says enough stuff, just blows him away because he's so angry as to this guy being responsible for all of his friends dying, and all he has to say about it is for the glory of the Empire, and like, hey, we're still here. He blows him away. So our shootout begins, and they crawl up to the top of the building after blasting a bunch of guys. Our two ladies are sniping these guys from a distance, and Boba Fett flies in to rescue them, and as they're kind of taking off, our sharpshooter, Bill Burr, kind of leans out, shoots at the couple of tanks, blows this whole thing up. Cara Dune sees it, is kind of impressed, which I think is setting up some stuff with this new TV show that was announced yesterday, that he could be returning as a more prominent role on a future TV show. But so we get a little bit of action and they kind of land, and they'd earlier stated that they were absolutely taking Bill Burr back. And then after this explosion, Cara Dune is like, yeah, too bad you died in that explosion. Get on out of here. And Mando's like, cool with this. And so he ends up running off, doesn't trust them quite. First, like, really? Seriously? You want me to run off? So he runs off, and they fly off towards Moff Gideon, and then it cuts to Moff Gideon's ship, and Mando sends him a message like, I'm coming for him. You have no idea what this guy means to me, but I'm coming for him. So, as I said before, it doesn't have the flash. It doesn't have the obvious, immediate excitement that you get when you see a previous character in live action form. Or see Boba Fett for the first time in almost 40 years. It doesn't have the immediate excitement of that. But I think it had those character moments that make me go, this is what I hope they learn from. Even more so than episodes that I probably like more. This is the episode, I think, to learn from a bit more to how do you create a show that has more longevity, depth, and sustainability. This is the one that I would look at. So where do I think that they're going next week? I think that they've hinted pretty clearly where this is headed. Our crew, we've already teamed up with a bunch of people from the past. We're going after Moff Gideon. We're going straight for him. Now, with the way this has played out at this moment right now, it doesn't seem a whole lot like they're going to go pick up 5 of their friends. We're not going to go get Timothy Oliphant. We're not going to go pick up our other Mandalorian friends. Because if they were planning on doing that, grabbing some friends to go on this mission, why on earth would you say, hey, Bill Burr, get on out of here? You would say, hey, man, if you come with us, we'll let you go. We got one more mission and we'll let you go. And we're telling you, we will do that. You would do that if you're trying to load up on people because he's a sharpshooter. He just showed he doesn't like these Imperials. He wants to kill them just as much as you guys do. So you would take him along. So I think it's just going to be this crew that's on the ship. Now, maybe as it was set up in the previous episode, what was it? 5 episodes back or 4 episodes back, that our Mandalorian friends, they're after this Darksaber. So you could just have their paths crossing as both of them are heading for the same thing, and therefore everybody shows up at the same time for our showdown with Moff Gideon. That could happen, but I don't think they're going to go pick up Ahsoka. I don't think they're going to go pick up our Marshal from the episode, The Marshal. But I think that they're going to go to this ship. We're going to have a big, gigantic showdown, very action-oriented episode. And in the final moments, I think we will get some big reveal. I've been saying all along, since they started putting the pieces in place, I do think that we're going to get Ezra, potentially Thrawn, in our final 2 scenes. How do you defeat Darksaber showing up? How do you have a more wow moment as your final shot? You have Ezra from Rebels showing up, following up that call, and then associated with him with where the show Rebels ended, Thrawn shows up. That even as per announcements made yesterday about Ahsoka Tano TV show, he's probably some sort of main antagonist of this spin-off show that's coming. So you bring him into the fold now, tease it in a big way of these guys showing up for to help little baby Grogu. I think it'll be towards the end. But then again, when you're bringing Force User in, something like that, you're bringing him in 15 minutes before the episode's over. And so we have a big battle with all of our heroes going at it, and they're going to lose. They can't take on an entire Imperial base. And then who's the cavalry that shows up? We get Ezra showing up, lightsaber in hand, probably cynical, jaded. He's not really on a side in all of this, something like that. He shows up just listening to the call that he was received, wants to save the day. Maybe it plays out more like that, and then the final review, that's 10, 15 minutes before the end, and our heads are exploding over this one, and then we get to the final scene. Thrawn is chasing him or whatever. He shows up, final moment. I don't know. We'll see what happens. I'm very excited about it. I've got more to say about Star Wars that's coming tomorrow. I'm going to talk about all of those shows that they announced yesterday. So that should be a lot of fun. Be sure to come back for that. Let me know what you thought about this episode as well as where things are headed. And keep talking movies and TV too much.